So, first of all, ayahuasca ceremonies?
Yes.
Why is can you as someone that totally doesn't know anything about it, and I'm not judging.
Sure.
I want to know why that word is a ceremony. What does it mean?
Well, I would say it comes from the different cultures from South America where it has been, used ceremoniously.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly the religious versus spiritual underpinnings, but it is a spiritual endeavor. Have you ever done mushrooms?
No, I haven't, but I've had Shane Moss here.
Oh, of course.
And my keychain is what
he's got the DMT molecule on
there.
there.
It's the DMT molecule.
Oh yeah.
On here. So does that that means that I know nothing more about it other than I have that keychain. Yeah.
So DMT, the active ingredient in the plant known as ayahuasca, which gets mixed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Now here we go.
They're related. You're on the right track here. DMT is in your brain, but it's not actively making you, hallucinate and experience death at all times because there are inhibitors. But one of the plants that is in the mixture that when you drink ayahuasca, one of them uploads you with more DMT. The other one decreases the inhibitor. Oh. So that makes you have the experience. And what makes it a ceremony is when I do it, and when many people do it, like you could do it probably if you got your hands on some, you could probably just down it and go crazy. Yeah. But the way that I've always done it and the way that I would recommend people doing it is to go to somebody who is a, knowledgeable practitioner. Like the man that I've gone to only has done it for, over 20-something years.
Great.
Learned in the jungles for, I think 8 years and then, studied with many people.
Where is this person located?
Lives in North America currently in the Northeast, but from Peru. So I've done it in Peru.
And you have to be, you can't share information. I mean, this is illegal.
I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah, of course. I'm not asking you to.
Social security number. I don't know that.
Well, I'm asking because I read in this magazine recently a guy went to the journalist went to one of these ceremonies.
Oh yeah, I read it.
You read it.
Yes.
And but that was in San Francisco somewhere. But he it's like going to a coach. Guide?
I use the word guide.
Guide.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say guide. Other people might say other things. Like this man, he just says like I've learned to work with these plants. Yeah. And so I help provide this experience. Wow. And the ways in which it is a ceremony or like a ceremony, enough that I call it one, and they do. Sometimes they call it a meeting. Okay. A meditation. Okay. In Peru they call it medicine, but that's not. Wow. I don't understand the legality because obviously I don't know everything about it because he doesn't call it medicine in America.
And here.
He says, "Welcome to this sacred plant meditation."
Wow.
This meeting with ayahuasca, like a meditation.
I like that.
And so they're before you start, they'll sort of cleanse different parts of the room where everybody sits with this holy wood called Palo Santo. Okay. Like they burn it and then it's a nice smelling smoke. Nice. He will either use smoke or oil to blow into each of the 4 directions to demonstrate north, south, east, and west. Okay. And be like sort of making a protective, at least symbolic, if not,
This is already way more sacred than doing cocaine in a bar bathroom with somebody.
That's correct. Yes. And then finally, when it comes time to take it, you snort the ayahuasca off the shaman's tits. You don't do that one bit. Right. I said a fun thing.
I was like, what? It is the same.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Then when, once it's all of those elements have been taken care of, he'll take the first shot himself.
I like that.
And then, demonstrating like, it's cool, man.
Yeah, it's like, I'm doing this with you. It's like the tandem parachuter.
And he's in the experience.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
And so there's often like a collective communal energy that, by the end of it, you're like, oh, this is like we all have our own individual experiences, but we also had this collective experience, which is kind of, it's the closest thing to church that I am involved with. So each person goes up and sort of like communion, kneels in front, and then he gives you the shot. Salud. Yeah. Down it. Gracias.
This is such a mature way to partake in, is it a mind altering? Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I learned about drugs through Nancy Reagan's Just Say No.
Oh, yeah.
The guilt and shame associated with drugs in my brain is that's the foundation of it. But if you were introduced to drugs, and I don't even like the word drugs, it just sounds so negative. If you were introduced to this ceremony, this practice, it's very adult and mature.
Oh yeah, I would
and
say
safe,
sometimes
and safe.
I say in my act when I talk about it that
Sure.
I also don't love calling it a drug. I'm also fine to say if somebody's like it's a drug, I'm like sure it's a drug.
Sure, it's a drug.
I mean, so are many things, and many things alter your mind.
Alcohol's a poison.
Yeah.
People don't like it when you say that, and you're like, oh, because you don't like that you keep poisoning yourself? Yeah.
Food alters your mind.
Yes.
You know, it's a substance like my mind needs food.
Yes.
Oh, now my mind has been altered in a specific way.
Yeah.
There's many plants that it's plants.
Yeah.
And they have this specific effect. But so I always say like it's a drug if the Last Supper is a snack.
Sure. Okay. Got it.
If Beethoven's Ninth is a little ditty.
It's a little ditty. So you're in between ceremonies now.
Yes.
And when is the next one?
I did one this past weekend.
Okay.
And I don't usually do them necessarily this close together, but I happened to be in LA when there was one happening here,
Okay.
and I'm going back to New York in a couple days, and then there's one happening next weekend in New York.
How do you know one's happening? Are you on like the email list?
There
or
is
something?
an email list.
There's a
the
fucking
sacred email list.
I love this. Oh man! And
Do you want to know more about how it's a ceremony?
Yeah, please.
The guide, in addition to being the person who has created the substance, or combined the two substances and cooked it into the exact proportions, he also guides the ceremony with chants. These specific songs called ikaros.
Okay.
And they're like these beautiful, like, in different languages, often like in Quechua, the sort of ancient South American language, I believe, and then some of them are Spanish, maybe Portuguese, some in English. And so and then sometimes other like helpers or people that are involved will play instruments. He doesn't play instruments, he usually just sings. Somebody else might sing. My ex-girlfriend would come and she would play the violin.
So cool.
And so it's sort of a beautiful, like, and sometimes the songs are, some of them have words and some of them are just like sounds like nine. It's just like with syllables that don't have specific meaning, but the sounds have they're like you're to follow the meaning of it, like, and it helps like sort of guide your experience.
I mean, this sounds like a mantra in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
it is that.
Yes.
And
they are like mantras.
What is your brain? What are you experiencing? What's happening?
Different things every time.
Yeah.
In fact,
Is it scary?
It can be, yes. I mean, sometimes here's a thing that I have been meaning to say, but I'll say it, and maybe I've said it, but and I will say.
I think you should say
past,
it.
present, future. Some people are worried about, sometimes it can have physical effects.
I've
it can
heard
make
about
you
that.
vomit. Sometimes it can, it can have darkness.
Sure.
Some people say. Do you have to confront your deepest, darkest fears?
Yeah.
And to that I would say, you may get to confront your deepest, darkest fears.
Right.
And I mean, it is a thing that is not like physically dangerous.
Yep.
Sometimes the guide will say, in order for the substance to be, like, for you to overdose or for it to cause any physiological problems, he says, you would need to take 50 glasses.
Okay.
And you take, in the ceremony, like one
glass.
shot, maybe two.
And it's just nice. It's just nice that you're with someone that's experienced and probably experienced every range of emotions with this drug and can help you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's a really smart way to do drugs, and I don't even like to say do drugs, but it's a smart way.
I mean, I would say, like, I used to do mushrooms a lot. I mean, not a lot. I mean, maybe a few times a year I would do mushrooms, and so I got, at least as good at it as I could for myself.
Yes.
I couldn't guarantee that you would have a specific time, but like, I would also be happy to if somebody wanted to do it for the first time.
Yes.
Like, I think I'm a decent person to be around so that I can, if you're like, what's happening? I'm like, this is fine. Just to be like everything. The major message that helps, I think, that even if you sort of lose your mind for a little while, knowing in advance and knowing after the fact that the effects come and the effects go.
Yes.
And the guide will say that, and it'll be nice to know that, and that's true of every drug experience, every emotion in your life.
Well, this too shall pass, and that is interesting. When I'm weak when it comes to drug use, but when I've had bad edibles, I've done it with experienced people, meaning good edibles. Bad experience on edibles.
Sure.
Just gotten way too high. And my friend is like, here's what's happening. I'm feeling the same thing, but I'm not freaking out like you because this has happened to me before. And it does help.
Yes.
It does help. How has it affected? How has these ayahuasca ceremonies affected your comedy, if it has? Would you say it has?
I think it definitely has, in that, every experience that we have, affects our life as a human being, and then as whatever kind of artist or creator, if we are one of those that we are. Like, there have been specific ceremonies that I've been through where I thought about, the way that I'm doing comedy now has evolved from the way that I used to, where I would say in the beginning, I started about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I would just write one-line jokes, and they wouldn't, they're just like, this seems funny to me? Does it seem funny to the audience? If it does, I'll keep saying it. If it doesn't, I'll stop. And now
just described my entire process. Yes.
And I guess I would say now I'd care more about which I still come up with so many things.
Sure.
But in the past, instead of trying to try them all out, now I'll be like, these are the ones that are the most meaningful to me, or the most seemingly funny. It's not always about just having a message. It's always, as a comedian, I would say, it's always an important goal to I want things to be the funniest thing they can be.
Yep.
But also, if things can be the funniest and most personal and most,
that's
meaningful,
the best case,
and have a message
and say something about our society or whatever. But some of that also can just be you maturing and becoming better as a comic.
I think, I think it has. It has been happening naturally that. So actually, this is an interesting timing thing to think about, because 2014, late 2014, is the first time that I ever did an ayahuasca ceremony. And I had been, like I said, doing mushrooms, and mushrooms would often be, when I would do them, I would be with friends. Sometimes you're just laughing, and sometimes you're like, oh, this is a meaningful idea that I have about a connection with the universe and other people and myself and whatever it is.
Yep.
And so I think, I was on this, path of growing and gaining experience just in life in general, even without them. Obviously, you meet people, you learn, you listen.
Yep.
I remember when I started out, a comedian friend, Matt Ruby, who has also done had these experiences. I remember years ago we would get into debates about the best comedy, who's doing, and he was always a truth guy, a soul searching guy, and I wasn't always explicitly being like that, but I loved Doug Stanhope.
Sure.
And he's like, if you love Stanhope, why aren't you trying to be more like Stanhope?
Right.
And at the time I was just like, well, I can love Brian Regan and Chappelle and Sarah Silverman as well, and they're all I don't want to try to be like anyone. I want to be, other than they're being themselves and speaking their truths, and not even necessarily truths all the time. Sometimes
it's a jerk off joke.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
A
and
silly
everyone
character.
Laughs.
And that is also a truth. Sometimes the truth is you thought a funny thing and you wanted to share it with the world, and that's equally valuable.
Yep.
And I do think that now I think about these things in a larger context of what things I can say so many things.
Yeah.
What things do I want to say?
Yeah.
And so either it has to be the most meaningful thing or the funniest thing.
Yeah.
And if it's meaningful and it doesn't get laughs, then at least I'm still saying a thing I care about. And if it's funny, but if it's not meaningful, it's whenever I thought about poetry in the past, I used to write rhyming poetry, and I'm like, well, at least even if it's horrible, it rhymes.
It rhymes.
What if you have a poem that doesn't rhyme and is bad? Then you're like, you got nothing. What'd you even do? And I'm like, I'm not saying that the best poem has to rhyme.
Yeah.
But
I understand.
But it's also hip hop I love, and it's amazing to listen to Eminem lyrics that you're like, this is a beautiful story.
Yes.
And also it all rhymes. How did you do this?
It's such a bonus that I want to play it as loud as I can in my car, because it's also just a great story.
Oh yeah, it's magic.
It's magic. But I also think as you progress as a comedian, I think in the beginning you go for, okay, this got to laugh, say it.
Yes.
But then now as you get older, and I'll use the word better, you're more selective. Okay, I can do that. Sometimes I'll write a dick joke and I go, that is a funny dick joke. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with our world. And I think it would get a laugh, but it isn't and you were more selective. You're more selective. Your baseball team is better. You're not going to swing at every pitch now. Do I have to do a sports analogy? I do, Myq.
I like it. I understand that there's swinging in baseball.
I understand that swinging exists. When is first of all, what your album No Kidding
Yes.
is out now.
Yes.
And where can everyone buy it and listen to it and love it?
I'm sure if you like iTunes, then it's there. If you like Amazon, it's there.
That's becoming a dumb question.
You can get a physical copy from my website.
Oh, yes.
Actually, maybe that might not even be true, but
Okay.
probably it is.
Yeah.
But you can definitely get a physical copy from A Special Thing Records.
Yes, cool.
And
Okay.
at my live shows, which,
Yes.
you can see my dates on my website.
And then you can sign it and take a
yes.
picture and all that
Definitely.
shit.
And
Yeah.
the cover art is by Ramin Nazer. Do you know
Okay.
Ramin?
I don't know Ramin.
He's a wonderful comedian, a great
Okay.
friend,
Okay.
and I would say check out his Instagram
Okay.
for free. Almost every day he puts a beautiful, sometimes
Ramin Nazer.
he has not done ayahuasca, but he has smoked DMT,
Yeah.
I think with our friend Shane Moss,
Yeah, I mean...
and the art is inspired it often.
What? Yeah, oh, is Ramin's the one that made the coloring book for Shane?
That's correct.
Yes. Yes, I know Ramin. So you don't say that every day. Oh, Ramin's the one that made the coloring book
The
for Shane.
DMT
Yeah.
coloring book.
Yeah, Shane sells these. I believe Shane's on like this fucking tour
A
right
massive tour of about sort of like
Yeah.
like part comedy, part TED
Yeah.
Talk, part personal journey about DMT and other psychedelics.
Yeah, and so Shane made this
Good
coloring
trip.
book.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
calls
good
it.
trip.
Yeah.
I remember one of the. I wasn't even on drugs, and I was looking through the coloring book, and one of the coloring pages was a skywriting airplane. And he was writing, "Don't do drugs." And I was like, this is making me trip. I'm tripping, and I'm not even on drugs.
Oh yeah.
Very interesting. I love talking to just people, but more in particular comics, because I think comics really analyze things who are experiencing mind-altering drugs, hallucinogens, whatever, because it's just interesting how these worlds we already analyze everything, sober. And now you're with this whatever you want to call it. Is it helping? Is it hurting? But it's changing your brain for a short period of time.
And for a long period of time.
And it can do that as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are studies that show that some people who've had like PTSD, anxiety, depression, OCD, like these things have been like psychedelics and like I think mushrooms and ayahuasca specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know of all the studies.
You're
that
not a doctor.
may
No
exist.
one's asking you to be. Yeah.
Don't arrest me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a doctor. Arrest all doctors, please. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But not me. I'm not one. I have a master's degree, so I'm a master, which sounds better than a doctor, but does take less schooling.
It is funny that master is the word we use.
Master.
Yeah.
That's enough. I'll stop at mastery. I don't need doctory.
Yeah.
But yes, so that these things can have and I know anecdotally at least, like people who have had like major life changes from even just one experience of ayahuasca or psilocybin,
Yeah.
And so it is definitely,
What's psilocybin?
Psilocybin is mushrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
All right,
magic
thank you.
mushrooms.
Magic
That's
mushroom.
the ingredient in there. But yeah, so I would say that my life is significantly different now. At least a mindset shift. I've started doing lots of things. Like around the same time I started doing ayahuasca, I started taking Tai Chi lessons. Like I'd never been very big into I've always like walked and like run maybe, but like physical connectiveness wasn't my
Tai Chi
forte.
seems badass.
I like it.
Yeah, it seems, you're always like, why are those people moving in slow motion at the park? But then you're going, maybe they know something I don't know.
It's meditative. I started doing like meditation with the app Headspace a few months ago as well. And it's just like
I use Simply Being.
Sure.
We're not endorsing any of these apps, but they're all good.
We're all one.
Yeah.
All the meditation apps are one.
It's funny how many meditation apps there are.
Oh yeah.
Like this. The reason I have to meditate is this, I think. But now I'm meditating with this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A robot helps us get in touch with our deeper self.
That's fucking weird. When is your birthday, Myq?
It is October 7th.
Okay. And through our previous discussion, it sounds like you've had some worse birthdays. In general, do you have good birthdays?
I generally do. The thing that I do for most of my birthdays now, started for the past several years.
Okay.
It used to be like, should I have a party, a thing, a get together? Nothing. Because I mostly, quote unquote, don't care.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that's actually sort of a connection to ayahuasca, in that
tying it together.
Some people call it a sacred plant. Sometimes the guide that I go to says like it is sacred, but everything or anything can be sacred.
My dog is sacred.
And similarly, So each day can be special. Like every day, I try to do something that I haven't done another day, so that every day doesn't just run together and be like, what's different about today? Like, why is this day different than all other days? Like, not just because it's Passover, because a different thing happened in my life, in my brain, in a conversation, in an experience.
Do you follow routines and structure, or do you try not to do that?
Here's a both in a way.
Yeah.
Like, here's a thing that I thought that I kind of like for myself, and if other people like it, like. Especially like if you're the kind of person that does mostly the same thing every day, like if you go to the same job every day, if you have the same routine every day, try to do at least one thing different every day.
Yeah.
And then if you're the kind of person who has who does not do the same thing every day, try to do at least one thing the same every day.
I like that.
So I do like meditation is first thing in the morning, unless I have to like get into early flight or whatever, and then I'll do it later. But
because
standardly, yeah.
I ask you that because I love that philosophy of let's do something different every day. Let's confuse our brain and our body because that's how we grow. But I also feel really comfortable with structure.
Do you know, there's a quote, I don't know whose it is, but I read it and I love it. It's, repetition makes us feel secure, variety makes us feel free.
Ooh, I like this.
And that's
Can I do both of those?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. And another quote I like is by, I know it's Niels Bohr, I don't have it exactly, but it's...
no one expects you to. You're not a fucking doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
I'm not Niels Bohr. Arrest Niels Bohr. This man said something like, the opposite of a small truth is a lie, but the opposite of a great truth can be another great truth. And that's why striving for...
I may have to write that down and think more about it. Yes.
Security and freedom are two things that, like, if we have the ultimate in security, we have no freedom. If we have the ultimate in freedom, we have no security.
Yes.
And so we need like an equilibrium.
Yes.
We want both of these things. We want maximum freedom and maximum security. So that's why, for me, I love like going away to travel. I love returning home. Home is secure. Travel is variety.
This is such a good fucking point. Thank you for saying those words into an amplification device.
I appreciate it.
Yes. I think what I like is a doorway, and the door is just slightly ajar. There's still a door.
Yes.
We can still shut something.
Yeah.
But the door's a little bit open.
Oh, yeah.
But why does it take 37 years of fucking life to figure this out? Everyone told me that. My grandpa told me that when I was 8. But
you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready.
Your door wasn't yet ajar.
My door was shut.
I mean, that's like when you start doing comedy and, like, you know, sometimes now people will ask you for advice probably, and you'll be like, well, the only advice is really to just do it and just keep doing it, write and perform, just keep doing it. And then they're like, well, what about, but how do you, what about specific things? And like, I mean, yes, that I can answer those specific questions. It'll be different for me than it was for you, but it's only, you know, and you might have had the same questions when you were starting, and people give you the answers. You have like the shapes of the answers. Like when you don't know how to read, you can look at a book, or if you don't know their language, you can look at the words. You don't know what they mean. Then you learn, you become enlightened in a way, and then you're like, oh, now I see the exact same input, but I am different, so it is different. Do you know chop wood, carry water?
No.
There's like a Zen koan, or
from now on, when you start a sentence with me, do you know?
I'll
the
assume.
answer is no.
But I want to give you a chance. So it's very short. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
So, you know, the information is the same on either side, but now once you have, you know, the, so to speak, enlightenment, it is, you're doing it in an informed way, the same way that you're writing jokes the same way, maybe that you used to, but now you're selecting them differently because you have this greater experience.
I feel like, I don't know how it was for you, but in the beginning, I would get a couple laughs and I would go, I think I kind of know how comedy works. And now, as I'm learning more and getting closer to mastery, wherever that happens, I'm like, holy shit, you don't know anything. And this is like playing the violin or throwing a curveball. It's like, in the beginning, it just seems like, oh, I threw a curveball, and then it's like, no, I don't know anything about the curveball.
In the beginning, I threw a violin.
I threw a violin that curved.
That wasn't what I was supposed to do.
In the beginning, I thought throwing a curveball was a violin. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's like, you know, that's like Socrates or Confucius. I literally don't know which one, or maybe it's both, but, you know, knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, you're like, oh, of course. I remember when I started doing comedy, you know, you want to get that opening. You're like, oh, if I have a killer opener, just get them. Yeah. So I'll trick them into thinking that I know what I'm doing. Maybe I do know what I'm doing. Yeah. And like, so eventually you're like, oh man, you finally have the first thing to say. You say it the same every time. Security, you have it.
Sure.
You get it. When it doesn't work, you're like, oh God, now it's nothing.
Now I'm screwed.
But almost always you have that. And like now, some of the most fun thing to do is like open riffing, be like with something brand new, never said.
Yep.
And like, if an audience doesn't like it, well, then I know I have my stuff to fall back on eventually.
Yeah, because you have the experience and confidence that you can get them. But yeah, I fall into that trap all the time.
I mean, and that's another like great truth opposite. Like, it's important to have them like you right away. Also, it's not important to have them like you right away.
Also, yeah. It's
either's fine.
You may you'll be fine either way.
I like both opposites.
What's the worst birthday that's happened in your life?
When I was 2, I'm told.
Here we go.
That I had a Burger King birthday.
Okay.
And I honestly, I was thinking about this on the way here because I was like, why do people? I mean, I don't remember it. I literally,
Where'd you grow up?
New Jersey.
Okay. A lot of Burger Kings there.
Yeah, definitely. There was a number of Burger Kings. I am told that I went to one of them. It could just be a story. Maybe I didn't have a party.
Yeah.
But like, your parents, obviously, they make you have these experiences before you even know when you're going to remember them. Because at some point, if they were like, you're not going to be doing anything till you're 3, be like, hey, I remember just sitting around. What happened? What was my life?
Yeah, I mean, it's like throwing the 1-year-old. You know, my family took my brother's 1-year-old to Disneyland, and I'm like, what are you spending $500 on this for? But I guess it's as much for them as anybody.
As long, hopefully, you'll appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
And may I interlude back to a thing that I was going to say? There's this one thing that I didn't get this from ayahuasca, but it helped clarify it.
Yeah.
I mean, it came from my mind.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is, I think, quote unquote, good. Like the idea of, and I talk about this on stage a little bit too, but it's like, it started as just like a life philosophy that, some people think that a penny is good luck if you pick it up. And some people believe that it has to be a heads up penny.
Correct.
And that seems like, I'm not, if you really care, then that seems silly.
Yeah.
And like, if you're going to make it like a religious argument.
Yeah.
And so my point is, it's just a penny. So just don't let a penny bum you out. Like if you see a penny and you want to pick it up and it makes you feel good, whether it's heads up or not, then great. If it makes you feel extra good, like the penny is the penny, no matter what.
Sure.
And the way that you feel is the way that you feel. And if you feel bad, that comes from in you and not the penny. And
Correct.
But if a heads up penny makes you feel even better, then great. So like life itself, like every day, and this is where it is, every day is a penny. Every day is potentially worth something.
I like
and
that.
then if you feel like your birthday is a heads up penny, then why not use that to
Go for it.
do the thing that I do, which I didn't say, which is now I'll just be like, I'm going to take the weekend closest to my birthday, one of them maybe. If I'm in LA, I'll try to do it in LA because I have friends here. I'll try to do it in New York when I'm there. So I'll have like 2 birthdays. Ooh,
Whoa.
And I'll just be like, hey, friends, I'm going to go to brunch at this place. Who wants to come? Invite a couple dozen people to see who's free from all my different sets of friends. And they'll be like, and then maybe I'll go sit in a coffee shop, and then maybe I'll go to a dinner at a place, and then I'll go to a bar at night, maybe do a show, and just be like, anybody come to any of these places
okay, Mike,
that you want.
This is a good plan. However, your friend Zach Sherwin sat in that chair right there, and one of his worst birthdays was in Boston or Cambridge, wherever it was, and he said, hey, friends, come all to this place.
Yes.
And nobody showed up. Right? So
that's why you got to invite like 100 people.
Well, yeah, okay. So my answer to that was you need to be specific with who you invite and how you invite them. It's not, hey, all come to this thing. It's, hey, Aaron, I really want you at my fucking thing. And you're going, invite 100 people. And what we learned from Zach is he didn't do either of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely say, I think this past year was the first birthday that I had in a long time that I wasn't in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so like when I've been in relationships, at least almost always then, you would have the one person.
Sure.
And also it's sort of like if no people show up, that seems like that's actually better than if like 2 people show up.
Yeah.
Like a show.
Yeah.
If only 2 people come to a show, you're like, oh God, people know about this. If nobody shows up, you're like, I wasn't even here.
Yeah, exactly.
This never happened.
Never happened. That's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, so, and it's interesting too, because sometimes, the only stress involved is if like you're going to a restaurant where like you have to tell them how many people, or if it's like, so I try to go to places where it's like, you can just hang out at like, like Mohawk Bend in LA is a great place because there's just like communal areas. Like if 4 people come, you go around 1 table. If 8 people come, you go around 2 tables.
I would recommend to everybody as well, in the text message or the email, say, I don't expect you to buy me all the drinks.
Oh, yeah.
Or the food.
No.
I'm a grown man. I have a fucking job. Because lots of times it's like, girls especially, I'm generalizing, but it's fucking true, listeners. They want free, they just want the free drinks. Well, I'm not doing that.
I definitely...
Stacey Longino.
I definitely, especially as you... as you grow older and wiser, and also more into yourself, like it's also equally. I went to I'll say his name because it's a nice story about him.
There we go.
I went to Josh Gondelman's birthday.
Okay.
Maybe either this year or maybe last year.
Yep.
Sometime in the past year or two. And he was like, did a thing. He's like, I'm going to be at this bar. Come to my birthday.
Yep.
And I walked in and I'm like, can I buy you a drink? He's like, I have a tab to buy people drinks.
I fucking love this.
He's like, this is my party.
Yes.
I'm happy to
That's nice.
get people things.
3 years ago when I lived in New York, I threw a small birthday party, and I decided, I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm saying because it made me feel good, and I want you to do it as well. Maybe 6 people showed up, and that's what I had planned on for the dinner, and I brought a small gift for all of them.
Oh, that's
wonderful. And doesn't it make you feel great to give somebody a gift?
Yes.
And it was like a double punch in the face because they brought me a gift that I didn't need.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your gift. Bang. Friendship.
And depending how many people you have, there's almost always going to be like people who are like, I must buy you a drink.
Yeah.
Like and
Sure.
Let them. That's your gift to them is that you let them.
Yep.
A thing that I've started doing also recently is this is not specifically birthday related, but gift giving related.
I like it. Okay, good.
I used to have tons of books. I still have tons of books, but like I moved from a bigger place to a smaller place.
When you're moving, it's tough.
I sold a lot. I sold like thousands of dollars worth of books to like a used bookstore.
Wow.
Then I still had. I'm like, these are ones that I like. They have meaning. They're like some of them I haven't read. They're like comedians' books. They're all these things.
Yep.
Like I don't want to just get rid of them. So I had a party. I was like, hey everybody, come to my home a month before I move, and bring food if you want to, bring drinks if you want to, and take away my books.
I like that.
And that way, I could also see like
take away my book party.
And then people get books. I went to another cool book party in LA once where it was like BYOB.
You do cool shit, Mike.
I get invited to nice things.
Yeah, but it's also because you do cool things and you're interesting. But like, this is great. I hope everyone realizes. If Mike's telling you a story and it's about
you can do it.
You can do it.
Please.
Do you live in Ames, Iowa? You can throw a book giving party.
And so this one, the one that I went to in LA that I haven't done it exactly like this, was they set up like their backyard garden like a bookstore, like with different sections.
Cool.
And they're like, bring drinks if you want, bring books if you want. You're like, we all have books around the house that we don't need. And one man's trash, one person's trash, one non-binary's trash, one anybody's trash is somebody else's treasure. Like I brought some stuff. Like I think I brought drinks, and then I went away with like a stack of graphic novels that somebody didn't want.
That you're happy to have.
And then so what I do now, so people, I gave away a bunch of books to people that I cared about. Then I'm like, oh, if I ever want to get that book back, hey, can I borrow that book? I know where it is if you want to keep track. And now just when people come to my house, I'm like, I'll just give them a book. Like, hey, you might enjoy like a book that I used to just keep everything because I'm like, I might want to read this again. But I keep buying things so much. I buy so many books that I'm like, am I going to get to read this again? Maybe not. Or if I want to, I'll buy it again. But here, friend, take this collection of Bruce Eric Kaplan cartoons. I don't need it anymore right now.
There's something nice about giving away. And it's like the monk that makes the sand design. Okay, thank you for knowing the term. And then wiping it clean.
Oh,
you know, and it's important to do that. Very hard.
Yeah, it's
Very
like
hard.
leaving and returning. It's like, you get it and you give it away, especially because even when I some things I will reread, but very rarely now because I'm like, there's so many new, good things that the joy that I would get by rereading something, I'm like, I would rather give it to somebody else and have them get like the even more joy reading it for the first time.
Speaking of more joy.
Yes.
Burger King. Yeah.
So at Burger
second
King,
birthday. Yeah. Tell me what happened.
I'm told that the only
I'm told that
my best friend bit me.
Oh shit.
Lee was his name, and he was a friend he was like the earliest friend that that I remember.
Yeah. Do you actually remember Lee?
I do. I definitely do because he was a friend of mine at least until I was like. It must have been until 7-ish, because I know the movie Clue came out in like 1985.
Not familiar
let's say.
with when it came out.
Fair enough. But it was around the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
I was born in 78.
Okay.
And then I didn't see the movie when it came out, but I got the board. Lee got the board game like right when it came out, which I assume was around that time as well. So must have been. I was somewhere 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. So I was at that point conscious, cognizant, knew who Lee was, remember him 100%.
Right.
Know what he looked like. He was shorter than me, which is rare. I was very short.
Okay.
He was blonde. And here's the funny thing that I remember about the first time I went to his house, the day after he got the game. We were like, well, let's play. And he was like, I can play, but we played yesterday, so I already know who did it. So
is that?
that's what he thought.
What a hell of a game that would be if it's always the same.
Sorry, didn't have any idea.
Where did he bite you? Do you know that? Anything?
The arm.
The arm.
I don't know which arm, but I'm told that he bit me and I cried.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that
He's
was
probably teething.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Teething.
He was younger than me. He was definitely between 1 and 2.
Have you ever been bitten since then, not sexually? It's really fascinating how because I remember like in elementary school I used to get bitten. Like
I don't have a memory of it.
I don't have a memory of it either, but it is, and we'll have to ask Aaron this after the show, but it's adult biting that isn't sexual. Obviously there's a whole fucking internet on biting and sex.
What are you talking about? What is this internet?
But it's kind of fascinating to see if someone's been bitten. Okay, so that's the second. You think you were 2?
Yes.
You think you were 2? Is it at Burger King? Is the
yes.
Burger King still there, you think?
I definitely don't know.
Yeah.
I don't live. I moved away from there like 10 years later.
And did you cry, do you think?
I think I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
You fucking.
Yeah, I was a baby.
You were.
I was a real baby.
I was
I was literally a baby.
You're allowed to cry.
Figuratively and literally.
Emotionally.
I cried like the baby I was. I did the right thing. I'd also. I might cry if I got. I guess. I mean, I like crying as an adult for sure.
Do you?
Yeah.
It happens. I'm angry when it happens, like at that stupid Super Bowl commercial that was celebrating like feminism and diversity, which was great. But I'm like, why am I crying at this?
They're manipulating you.
They are.
I mean, it is also a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
They're manipulating you with a beautiful thing.
They are so good at 30 seconds of capturing your brain's inner core.
What does it for me is the show Scrubs frequently.
Okay.
Does that. Yeah, I mean, they do beautiful things with
Really?
it's comedy, but it's also like poignant and so there's people that you meet a person in one episode.
Our sound engineer Aaron he's also crying right
a character that you've just met dies and then you feel and the music is a thing.
Well, that's where they fuck you. And if they're going to do some rendition of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, then you got me. You win,
and
NBC.
The season finale, the series finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer did it for me as well. That was has been like one of my favorite shows, maybe my favorite for years.
Parenthood was very good at making people cry, but it was too dramatic.
Do people tell you look like Peter Krause?
I haven't heard that before.
I'll
take it.
Yeah, he's a guy. You know
like
one of the guys on Parenthood.
Yes.
Who was also on 6 Feet Under, which the ending of 6 Feet Under also Waterworks.
Waterworks. You know what he was in that wasn't Waterworks?
Sports Night.
Sports Night.
Of course, you would love. I love Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, well, that was very interesting to watch Sports Night because I was watching one because I was like, oh, Aaron Sorkin, what is this weird show he did about sports? And you still can see like the genius of him in this weird show about Sports Center.
The Newsroom also made me cry sometimes, and I felt that was like they were manipulating me with like the world, emotions, things. You're like, if only this were every people are not God. I had a girlfriend once who, because I think there was a time in my life when I would cry more at art, more at entertainment than I would in like actual real life sad things I was experiencing. Some things I would, but I remember like having a girlfriend once, we had just been like had a fight and like then we were watching like Scrubs and I was like tearing up and she's like, "Are you crying
about
at Scrubs?"
This?
And I was like, "This is sad.
Yeah.
It's getting me."
Ryan Dalton has a funny joke about how his wife was crying on his wedding day and he wasn't crying. And he's like, okay, no big deal. And she's like, maybe he's not a crier. But then when Cleveland won the basketball, he started weeping, and his wife was like, it was like a big fight.
Oh yeah,
like you cried about this.
I understand.
What's another worst birthday?
I would say the year that I was getting divorced.
Oh shit! Didn't know it. I didn't know that about you.
Oh yes.
What year would this have been?
Let's see. I think I was 27 or
okay.
So I believe that I.
That's fine.
Somewhere between 2006-ish, 2007-ish. So October of one of those years. Like maybe I was turning 28.
And on your birthday, where were you in this divorce process?
Great question.
So
we'd been together probably almost. It was probably 2.5 years at that point. And
where are you at this point, geographically?
In Boston. Okay. I went to college in Boston. Started doing comedy in Boston.
Is that where you met Zach?
Yeah, we went to the same college.
Oh my
God!
Fact. Yeah, because you guys are real buds.
We're peas.
We're peas
in. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
A podcast.
Worst birthday podcast.
And
that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Yeah, because you guys have this this comfortability where I'm like, they know each other from a different place.
We didn't become we started becoming very good friends probably like 10 years ago, but we met, 16 years ago or more. Actually, like probably 18 years ago.
So you are 2000s, mid-late 2000s.
I'm in grad school at Boston University. Okay. I'm living in an apartment on campus as a senior resident assistant.
What are you studying?
Linguistics.
Gee, of course you're studying linguistics.
It's the only thing I could.
Okay.
I'm made of words. And at the time, my wife was living with me in the apartment there, and we had like started growing apart. Which is it was the longest relationship I'd ever had. I'd had nothing longer than a year. This is now 2.5 years. I know other people have made it much farther in many relationships that even aren't marriages.
Right.
But at the time, like, we were she was like a musician. She stayed up late, like doing her work. I woke up early and had my alone time. But we also we spent time together during the day. It seemed good. It seemed like a nice. We each have our own lives. But then little by little, like it sort of separated. She was dealing with depression at the time, and so that sort of impact. I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but it was definitely impacting like our connectedness.
There's always this hard part with the spouse or significant other when it's like, hey, they went through a terrible car accident and I care about them and I love them, but then also they can't speak as well. Like there's also just the reality. This is now a harder relationship.
Yeah. It impacts your.
Yes, it impacts you. Yeah.
The things that affect you individually infect you collectively. I said by accident, and it works just fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
But yeah. So then I was like, I know that you are depressed, but also, we are not in a good place in our relationship. Not just because of that at all, but like sometimes, let's say it would go, we maybe go months without having sex, let's say.
Yeah. Okay.
Which maybe I think that did happen sometimes. And so sometimes like, I would not be like, hey, you don't have to do this, but if we're going to be in a relationship.
Was somebody trying to have sex with somebody?
Because
that's also the other thing. If both people aren't trying, it's like
there were times I wanted to have sex more than we were having sex, and she was dealing with not really wanting. I mean, maybe there were some incompatibilities that were sort of rearing their heads as well. Like we weren't the right people to be together, but at the time we did care about each other. We were very good friends. It became more platonic, and that became a thing that I was like, let's address this.
Yeah.
And so we actually did. I'm a polyamorous identified person now. At the time, I was not. But she had brought up the idea, like when we started dating, that might be a thing to try, and I was like, no, thank you. I'm conventional at the time, but towards the end, at this point, I'm like, things aren't great. Let's try. Do you want to date women?
Maybe I can have sex with somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was honestly for her. I was like, maybe if this is something you haven't been realizing this portion of your sexual identity, of your sexual orientation, like you're a queer person. You are only dating me. You're married to me. You're really dating me.
Yeah.
I was like, so we did open up the relationship a bit where that at the time. She could see women because she wanted to see women, and I didn't want to see men. But she's like, "But that would be the fair thing," and I'm like, "Well, that's
not how it works."
In one way, it's also not a fair thing. But so we had like we figured out a set of rules.
You're allowed to see women because that's who you want to see, but you have to see men, even though you don't.
That is the gender fairness. But so we ended up being like, I couldn't like date people, but I could like hook up people in various ways. And we said it.
Did you put like literally the rules were you can get a blowjob but you can't have sex or stuff like that, or no?
I think we did say that I couldn't have sex with people, but I could like definitely I could make out with people, but like not people we knew, not other comedians,
right?
But so I did end up while I was like in another.
This form doesn't exist on LegalZoom, by the way. Polyamorous disclosure.
It might soon.
It might soon. Yeah.
Legal soon. I'm made of words, so I would say that like she started like going on dates with people, and I like was open to. I started like I think I made out with a person, and like I think our deal was like we would tell each other, and I told her that I'd hooked up with a person in a gentle way, and she then was like, can we let's put the brakes on this a second, and then that sort of now like pulled back a curtain and sort of revealed like. I don't want to like go back to just us because just us was not good.
Yeah.
And that's when we started. And this was around like the fall, and that's around when my birthday was. So I know it wasn't like a happy birthday time. That's when we started going to therapy.
Had you done comedy at all at this point?
Yes. I started doing comedy when I was 24, and this is now a couple of years into it.
Even though you are getting a master's degree in linguistics.
Yes.
A very difficult
the part of the reason that I was in the master's program technically for 8-ish years, which is the program is about 8 classes plus a thesis. So I took the 8 classes in. You could usually do the whole thing in 2 years.
Okay.
You could, if you did it real hardcore, do it all in 1 year.
Yeah.
Because I was a resident assistant, I lived on campus for free. I didn't have to do as much, and because I wanted most of the reason that I liked learning, but I also wanted to give myself time to be able to go out and do comedy.
Yeah.
So I did my
free place to live.
Did my duties, got the free housing.
Yeah.
And I think so in 3 years I did all the classes. So then and that was from like 2000 to 2003. So from 2003 to 2008, I was quote unquote working on my thesis, but wasn't really doing it until the very, very end.
It's interesting because linguistics is comedy, or it can be, very much so. So in some
there are
ways,
connections, for sure.
For some ways you are researching.
Yeah, there's things like on the levels of like, phonetics, where the different words sound and, use different sounds. And then there's syntax and the way that different sentences get put together. And then like semantics above that. And like there's jokes that sort of operate on all those levels as well. Like there's wordplay up to like sort of concept play, and then, deeper philosophical things. People often ask, they're like, did linguistics help your comedy, or did you choose linguistics because of your comedy, or did you get to comedy and which way did it go? And I'm like, I feel like that I've, in some ways, always been the person with these seeds inside of me that are like growing as trees in each of these directions, or vines. That's what ayahuasca is. And I would say that like the way that I say it sometimes is that they're all like symptoms of the disease that I am.
Yeah. And you're not writing a joke going, let's use semantics here, and then let's use syntax. No, but it's what your brain is.
Yes, my brain is like, let's do some antics here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you started couples therapy.
Yeah, around then.
Is this helping?
I mean, it definitely, what it did, we had a conversation where where we decided that we should go to therapy.
Yep.
And she was saying like, that'll be great. We can definitely help figure out, how to become better and move forward. And I was like, and if we don't, then move forward separately.
Right.
Like, and I think I was the first person who brought up the idea of divorce, and she was like, but we're a family. And I'm like, but we're a chosen family, and we have to keep choosing to be that family if it's the right thing for us each individually.
And there's no kids?
No.
So it's even more chosen.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in order to be like, we're not just going to stay together forever because we said so when we were 25.
Signed a fucking legal document. Yeah.
And and eventually, like now we're friendly. I do think of her as family still, and she's happy, I think, with a partner. I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Yep. Identified polyamorous.
And single and poly.
Yeah, here we go, singleandpoly.com. Myq. So do you remember the actual birthday?
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that it was like, I'm sure we were still trying to be together.
Well, this is a lot of people have had worse birthdays where it's been like, well, I think we're about to break up, but I had the birthday coming up, and calendars don't change. Like if your marriage is disintegrating and it's your birthday, it's still your fucking birthday, and that's awkward.
And I would
what
say,
do you do?
I remember I had a girlfriend a few years earlier, like when I was maybe 21, 22, who I knew that I wanted us to break up as it was approaching Christmas, but I also had gotten her like a great present, and I wanted to give it to her. And then her birthday was like 2 weeks after, so I was like, oh, I can't break up with her before, in the middle, and the answer is yes, you can.
Yes, you
can. Do it before, because afterwards, then people it taints everything.
Well, breakups, there is no good time.
Yeah.
Now is the time.
Yeah.
If you want to break up, fucking do it now.
Have you heard this thing that I'm sure you haven't heard?
No.
I saw this on like, it's probably like a Buddhist thing, or some ancient philosophical thing, or maybe it's modern, who can say?
Yeah.
But I saw it at the People's Improv Theater in New York City. Backstage they have like some signs up, like, hey, first thought, best thought, follow the fear. And this one was, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The second best time is now.
That's good.
So the best time to break up is like the first moment when you know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done it yet, like at least start. I'm a big advocate of talk about what's wrong. Maybe you don't have to break up. Even like when I was like 19, I dated a girl for about 6 months. At like the 3-month point, I started having these seeds of doubt planted, and I was like, well, don't let her. I don't want to. yeah, like keep them to myself. Like, 'cause
Yep.
I'll process it, I'll figure it out.
Yep.
But then they sort of grew, and I never, at a certain point, I quote unquote should have said something.
Yep.
But the point at which I said something in that relationship was when I was like, I can't take this anymore, and she's
Yep.
like, what are you talking about?
Where'd this come from?
Everything
Well, these
seems
seeds have
fine.
been growing for a year and a half.
Didn't you know? And she's like,
I'm the
yeah.
guy that's like, I'm feeling a seed being planted, so I talk about it too much. And then
Mhm.
they're like, you don't have to talk about all of that stuff. But
That's true. I mean, and you need balance.
You need
You want
balance.
to not talk about it, not enough,
Yep.
not talk about it too much, because have, either a therapist or
Yep.
or trusted friends
Yep.
who you can, unburden yourself.
Yep.
And obviously, if you're talking to them about it all the time, then talk to the person and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
I
I find it doesn't, if you bring it up to them right away, I find it's good to talk to somebody else first.
Oh, yes.
Because I say it the wrong way usually.
Want to hear? Here's a fun phrase that I learned a few years ago, and I'm gonna say, have you heard of it? And when I start saying it,
Yeah.
you may think that you've heard of it, and I will implore you to listen to the end of the phrase.
I'm going to listen to the end.
Everybody, listen to the whole thing. Don't jump in and say that you know it. You might,
Here we
but
go.
strike while the iron is cold.
Okay.
And what that means in like the context of a relationship, and like say you get, an issue arises
Yeah.
for you, like say you get into a fight, say somebody does
Yeah.
something that bothers somebody. Sometimes the impulse is to be like, we got to work this out right now, like while everything
Mm-hmm.
is heated, and that could be the right thing to do depending on what it is and depending on the situation. But often a good thing to do can be like, let's take some time, separate, think about this on our own, and then when the iron is cold and you have
Yes.
a little distance from
Yes.
what you were experiencing, and you can more objectively be like, oh, here's what I actually think and feel about what happened before.
That's very often you'll be in a relationship argument and then you'll get a distraction, like you'll be at your family's house for a holiday
Oh,
or
yeah.
the phone rings or whatever. And then you kind of take that on, and then an hour later and you're like, what were we fighting about? Yeah,
Oh,
strike
yeah.
while the iron's cold. Myq Kaplan, I want to thank you for sharing your worst birthdays.
Oh, I appreciate
Um,
the opportunity.
Burger King. Lee's a dick. Let's be honest.
I mean, I don't know him now.
Yeah, you don't know him now. I hope he's probably a big listener. And was it lastly, was it a big relief, the divorce, when it all was said and done?
I mean, definitely at this point,
Yes, yes.
And yeah, soon thereafter, there was a point of like regret,
Yeah.
because you ever have a relationship end and you're like, what if I never find a
Yeah.
person this good or
Yeah.
who cares about me
Yes.
this much? And that might be the case, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean, being alone is better than being with the wrong person.
Yeah, I agree.
Depending how wrong they are.
Yeah.
And yes, there was a time. I mean, I did cry for like 3 days straight. I was
it's tough.
and I was sad also for more than 3 days.
Yeah.
And there was a time when we were separated for probably weeks or months.
Yeah.
That I was like, broached the subject of being like, do you? I think I asked her if she wanted to like date again
Yeah.
after we had like separated.
Right,
We had
right.
like the divorce would be like finalized a year later.
Yeah.
But I was like, are we like? I care about you. You know,
Yeah.
it's confusing because
It's
there's
very confusing.
you think about the good things, and then when you're in it, you don't think about.
The photo
Yeah.
albums are all nice stuff.
We never looked at our wedding video. We never
Yeah.
looked at those photos. We're
Yeah.
like, maybe would that have kept us together?
Breakups are tough. Someone should write a song about a breakup. I don't know. I think they should.
I'll do it.
You can. Myq Kaplan will do it.
Breakups, they are bad.
There we go.
Breakups,
That was the
breakups.
least complicated song by a linguistic master.
They can make you glad.
What's your website?
Myq Kaplan, spelled the strange way that I spell it, .com.
Okay.
You don't have to put all that in. It's just MyqKaplan.com. You can get my albums and stuff
And
there.
your podcast?
Hang Out With Me.
Okay. And that's everywhere you would find a podcast.
It's on the Keith and the Girl network, so if you go to
Yep.
keithandthegirl.com/hang or on iTunes, of
Okay.
course.
I want to thank you for sharing your worst birthdays.
Thank you so much.
And I want to wish you best of luck with your new album, No Kidding. Please check it out, guys. It's Myq Kaplan. Happy worst birthday. Thank you.
Please, happy worst birthday to you.
Perfect.
Oh, that was really fun.